How are you doing right now? It's only 3 days of time on the island, but we got a lot to get into.
Uh, uh, you know, it was a fascinating, rewarding experience. No regrets. Still glad I did it. Wish I'd had more time. We'll get into what happened, but like you saw what happened. And so it's not like I come away feeling like I let myself down in the experience. I feel like I never fully got the experience. So it's less about, oh, everybody saw me get the first boot, which everybody did. And I'm getting, the perfect mix of jokes at my expense, anger on my behalf that I would expect. Um, it's more about the fact that because it was a strange, like basically like I can't think of a parallel in a previous season to what happened. And because I think everybody was caught off guard by it and what it did after we got back from the challenge, I don't like it's not like I like am filled with like remorse or regret or doubt about my belief in why I should go on the show. My disappointment is not having had more time because it was really fun and I was having fun doing it and I think I was a fun part of it.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. Now, look, I count myself among the many that were surprised to see you go specifically.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you were as well, considering that there was a lack of a shot in the dark play. So, talk to me through what was going through your head at that tribal council. You talked about this like natural and unnatural target. What did you think the plan was going to be as you were sitting at your first and ultimately only tribal council?
So, right, natural versus unnatural. And the conversation was about basically how Andy had blown it in all the ways that are in the show. And so that makes him the natural target, but when there are shots in the dark, you have to think, well, who's the unnatural target? I did think it was probably me. And I'll tell you in that moment, I like if it's not a regret because I obviously if what I know now I should have done it. But I really did think at that moment, how funny would it be to just turn my bag upside down at tribal and take out my shot in the dark? What you don't see is, they compress so much conversation into the final few minutes before tribal. And the challenge I had, and I really did feel like I had pretty good awareness of what was going on, is it was so neat when we got back. The Sierra, Anika, Rachel being like, we're just gonna vote Andy. We just got to keep the tribe, kind of keep the tribe strong. This guy's a loose cannon. We can't have him here. Are we all good? We're all good. We're gonna have to tell Andy it's your name. Even if that part hadn't come up, which I understand why it would have had to anyway, there was just uh, it was just so clear to me that that's exactly what you say if you're voting for me, right? Because shots in the dark exist. And if I were in their shoes, that's exactly what I would do too, right? Like Andy's an obvious first out. He has shown himself to be unreliable. Uh, he just blew up in front of the entire cast of people and Jeff. So let's bring him along. I mean, why wouldn't you? He's going to have to be loyal to you. Everyone else has already seen he's unreliable. He'll be in your debt. I'm smart and a little bit of um uh, like I am not someone they could like the other tribes could work with me, right? People could work with me. There's no reason to think I couldn't be a threat. So why not, right? Like why not do that? And so the challenge I had was how do you get a group of people who are saying to your face it's Andy to actually vote Andy? Right?
Hmm.
How do you change their mind when in the conversation they're telling you that they agree with you? And there are moments like that you don't see where I can't remember now at this point, but it was a couple different conversations. But I remember one with Rachel where Rachel's like, we're voting Andy. And I was like, Rachel, I know you're saying that, but I really want to get the vote onto Andy. She's like, well, it is Andy. It's like, I hear you're saying that. And so like it was just like kind of mind bending. And so the reason I ended up voting for Anika, who I had actually had, like, if I have a regret, it's from before going to the challenge, which is I should have maintained that relationship. We just kind of hadn't spoken since the first day. Um, there was a few different conversations, but there was a conversation with Sam and with Andy, which is basically like, hey, Sierra, Anika, Rachel are getting pretty strong. Like, Sam, we could pull in Rachel. Sam, we could pull in Sierra, vote out Anika, and then we'll be stronger going into the next challenge. And we won't have ceded to this group of three that was, I think, going to get tighter. So that was my real only play that I thought Sam and Andy were open to. I think Andy might have been open to it. Sam wasn't, though he told me he was. And that was what, again, like, this is not a situation in which I was like, oh, wow, I really thought I had persuaded Sam. I wonder what happened. I thought it was like a 20% chance, which
Mm.
is slightly better than shot in the dark. Like, I really, like, I went into that tribal feeling like I had a 20% chance no matter what I did. And what I didn't want to, because of how the vote would have shaken out, if I'd used my shot in the dark and I had actually had Sam and Andy, I would have gone home because I gave up my vote. That's the nature of it. So I really didn't know what to do in that moment. But if Andy doesn't have his freak out, if Andy doesn't basically say, I am so desperate to stay in this game, I'm willing to be kind of like weakened in front of everybody, exposed in front of everybody, I don't care. I think things would have probably gone differently. Like, there just would have been a bunch of different paths. I have a, I just, there were just would have been so many more ways to maneuver. I just wasn't, I didn't go into that challenge feeling like I was on the block. But
Hmm.
once Andy does that, in part just because of the the way in which things happen quickly, Sam and Sierra felt like a pair. Rachel and Anika felt in the middle because Andy pulled me for 1 second on day one. All of a sudden, I'm tied to Andy. And because Rachel was suspicious of Andy, suddenly it was the other four. The only option for me was for them to turn on someone they felt a little bit tighter with on behalf of not just me, but on behalf of Andy, which I don't think they wanted to do. And so it just became hard. Like the 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 like the number of outcomes just really narrowed,
Mm.
and it narrowed onto me.
Well, you mentioned that freak out leading to your boot over Andy's. I mean, give me your reaction to that because we had gotten a little bit of a soundbite even during that time when, Andy was spiraling a little bit with waking up Rachel in the middle of the night that you were feeling a little on edge about your relationship with him. Obviously, that edge becomes very sharp once he has this whole airing of the dirty laundry out on the mat. Talk me through sort of your relationship going in and then how that blew up following that whole meltdown.
Yeah, like basically what I felt like had happened, and sort of, and again, like it just sort of gets truncated by the challenge.
Hmm.
I had like had some really good moments with Anika, with Rachel, and with Andy. And there were like really funny, good conversations with everybody. But like that to me was where I felt the most comfortable.
Hmm.
And it, like, what I had hoped would happen and what I expected would happen is Rachel and Anika. I had like a natural affinity with Anika and with Rachel. I just feel like we're the kind of people that would get along. I think I continue to believe that's true. Like, and so I felt like what would ultimately happen if we had to go to a vote is it would be basically persuading Anika and Rachel to come along with me and with Andy. I didn't see, like, obviously there was, by the time, like, leading up to the challenge, it's like every day Andy's getting a little bit stranger, I guess. And so, but there was very little strategic conversation, right? Like, there was a lot of people moving together. They showed one moment of Sierra, Sam, Anika, and Rachel saying, like, oh, it's us, it's us. There was a conversation that had happened at night where it was me, Sierra, I think Rachel, and Andy. Like, there's just a lot of conversations going on, and a lot of promises being made. It's the nature of
Right.
it. Uh, but my hope was that Rachel, Anika, Andy, and I would be a good group of four. I thought it was a smart, strategic group of people that I could relate to. That felt like the natural direction for the group to go. I was not aware of how much Andy had alienated Rachel, right? like wasn't there for that conversation. I got a little bit of a sense of it. I heard a little bit of it, but like it wasn't as clean as what you see. And so that obviously, if I had known that, that might have changed what I was trying to do. Obviously, if I knew that there was about to be a like burnout day 3 moment, I would have taken a step back and gone to Anika a bit more. But again, you don't know you're going to lose the challenge. You don't know what's going to. I mean, like I was just, how am I supposed? It was just such it was an unprecedented situation. Like I had thought about so many different ways it could have gone. It did not occur to me that I'd be dealing with somebody who would basically a strategically collapse in that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned that there were people that you were vibing with, but we got a sense from the edit that you had felt a little socially isolated, whether it was an age gap, whether it was like you talking about your career, your reputation, etc. I mean, talk to me about your perspective on that. Was it as much of a gap as you had expressed in the edit?
I think I had a very, there was very, it was a very kind edit. I'm no
Hmm.
criticisms of the edit whatsoever. But I think the reality is I was a threat and he was not. And I think you can go looking and find other stories to tell inside of that. But that's what happened. And like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm sure, like, I don't like the you're with a group of people you've never been with before. You basically express both sides of it. Like, am I having trouble fitting in, or I'm building really good connections with people? But I just don't. I've thought about this too. Like, I'm really not trying to spin. Like, was it a social problem? Like, maybe a little, but I really think it is a math of a group of 6 problem. And I totally respect why they voted the way they did, but it was a um it was not a kind of, I think, like an outcome of the social dynamics. It was an outcome of the strategic dynamics and what happened with Andy, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, you are the first boot of your season. Look, it's tough to follow up a legendary first boot like Jelinski, but I mean, how do you look back on your time on the show? I mean, you had mentioned on the opening match at this idea of we're all thinking about how we could and would do is now going to be met with the harsh reality of what we will be doing. Now that we see what you did, how do you feel like those preseason comparisons kind of measured up to the weird set of circumstances that culminated in your boot?
I like I don't know that there's a way for me to play the game without coming across as strategic and uh smart, to be honest. I just don't like, I like that. And I again, like I think we even talked about this before. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna not be myself because, I'd rather go home as myself than try to hide and kind of soften the edges and never have been on the show at all. So like again, like I don't feel as though I like could I have done something different? Yes. Like I think, are there ways I could have been a little less um uh brazen in terms of being strategic? Maybe, but I'm just gonna chalk it up to bad luck mostly.
Hmm. Well, I feel like the lucky one getting to have watched you on
Oh,
this. I mean,
wow.
I mean,
Nice.
it's a very fun experience,
What did you
especially
think? What did you think?
I mean, I think that listen, you outlined it as well, one glorious, perfect episode, and though the outcome
Hmm.
was far from perfect, I really like the perspective that you brought in. Your wit, of course, it was very much expected to be there, and yeah, I mean, it was a rather unprecedented set of circumstances, and I am happy that you sort of walk out of it largely with like very little regrets, if any. it sounds like, if you got given the opportunity to play again, would you take that up, or are you like, I checked that box. I lived out there for 3 days. I'm good.
I'm again like I don't feel like I screwed up the experience. I feel like I didn't totally get the experience.
Experience. And
Right.
honestly, I wouldn't be doing it for me. I'd be doing it for all the people that are so upset. All right. It would be a sacrifice I'd be making on behalf of Survivor.
There
But
we go.
Jeff knows where to reach me. You know?
There we go. We're starting the campaign to win those million hearts while you're working on a very different campaign as well.
Yes, and everybody go to Vote Save America, please. Please, you saw what happened when the votes don't go your way. It doesn't feel great. Go to Vote Save America. Please sign up. We need people in the home stretch.
Please do me a favor and sign up and help. Thank you.
Yes, it is time to vote. Be like John. Don't, throw your vote away on a shot in the dark or anything. Make sure your
Right.
voice is heard.
Absolutely.
Well, this was such a delight to get to talk to you, several months ago as well as today. Obviously, I wish we were talking further down the line, but any time to chat with you is a good time. And thank you so much for, as per usual, opening up about, this very odd but incredible experience. It was a great time getting to chat with you again.
Yeah, good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, have a good one. All the best to you and yours.